I'm gonna be insufferable for the next minute or so. I have not one, but 2 signed copies of Leigh Bardugo books. I have this bad boy right here. And I have this one, which is signed and personalized to Sabrina. So yeah, I have 2 signed Leigh Bardugo books. Be fucking jealous. Hey y'all, what's up? I'm Sabrina and welcome back to my book nook. Basically, last Friday I went to a book signing of Hellbent and I met Leigh Bardugo. I only met her for like 15 seconds honestly at most, and I was really nervous the entire time. I was just like rambling, like you couldn't even hear the words I was saying. She was actually so sweet and I loved her so much. But yeah, overall it was just such an amazing experience and I'm so incredibly lucky to have, you know, been able to go to a book signing by her and have 2 of her signed books, which I just think is crazy. But yeah, today's video is just going to be a book review of Hellbent, which is her newest book. It is #1 on the New York Times bestselling list right now, because of course it is. Before I get started, I just wanted to break down how my videos work. My book reviews are broken down into 4 parts. Parts 1 and 4 will be spoiler free, but parts 2 and 3 will have spoilers. If you don't want spoilers, please don't watch parts 2 and 3. Thank you very much. So part 1, I give my beginning thoughts and opinions and a brief little plot summary. Part 2, I talk about plot writing and other elements. Part 3, I talk about characters and relationships. And part 4, I give my final thoughts and opinions as well as an overall rating. Okay? Okay. So now that I've made that little disclaimer, we can just get started on the book review. Oh my god, I just remembered. I hit 1,000 subscribers, you guys. That's fucking crazy. Are you kidding me? Thank you guys so much. Thank you to everybody who subscribed to me. Thank you to everybody who's watched me. This is just fucking crazy. I have 1,000 subscribers. Okay, part 1, beginning thoughts and opinions. As I mentioned before, I had the wonderful opportunity to meet Leigh Bardugo and attend a book signing for Hellbent. So I'm coming into this video with like insider information, you know. But yeah, also just a warning, if you haven't read Ninth House for some reason, like you're watching this video and you haven't read Ninth House, which I don't know why, I can't promise no spoilers for Ninth House because, you know, Hellbent itself, its plot summary has major spoilers for Ninth House. So also, this is kind of dumb to admit, but when I first read Ninth House, I legit thought the secret societies and like magic was real, and I was so scared because I was like, am I allowed to be reading this? Like, how is she allowed to release this information? How old was I think I was 14 or 15. So that's a little bit too old to be that gullible. But also, like, when you call them secret societies, I thought they were secret because of like magic and stuff. Whatever, it doesn't matter. On to talking about Hellbent. I think that this book overall was an incredibly well written book. At first the length seems, you know, a little bit unnecessary, but I think once you actually read it, you feel that every word is integral to the story. Leigh Bardugo is such a master at her craft that she makes every single sentence in the story feel important and absolutely necessary, which I think is just an amazing quality for a writer to have. This is an adult novel, so the fantasy in this book is more dark, mysterious, gritty, but it's also enticing, I would say. However, it does get pretty disturbing and graphic at times, so if you're a squeamish person, I'm a squeamish person, I did, you know, a little bit at some of the scenes in this book. But I think that the fantasy itself, though, is still very, very appealing, and you can't help but continue reading. And also the characters in this book, they're incredibly intense and like raw. They feel real, and you can't help but root for them even though they're not necessarily good people, which again I think is a testament to Leigh Bardugo's good writing. I think that the only criticism I had on this book was that I think that the ending could have been tied up a little bit neater, and it felt just the tiniest bit anticlimactic. I don't know, maybe it's recency bias, but I genuinely think this was such a captivating read and such a great story. I read it in about 2 days, which I am actually pretty proud of myself for that. Also, this is kind of a slight spoiler, but it's not really a spoiler if you just like Google it. Basically, I thought this series was a duology. It is not a duology, so just be warned if you're gonna go into this book. On to a little plot summary for this book. Hellbent is the sequel to Ninth House, and it once again follows the main character, Alex Stern, as she navigates the dangerous Yale secret societies as an officer of Leigh, as she attempts to make the journey to hell and back in an attempt to save Darlington, the gentleman demon. Also, I wanted to apologize for my hair. It's been up all day, so it's very tangly, and I haven't washed it in the past 48 hours because I just recently dyed it, and you can't actually tell it's dyed because the lighting is so shit. But if I shine a flashlight on my head, like, it's red. It's red. Anyways, that was way too much information. Moving on to part 2, plot writing and other elements. So like I said, the plot in this book is hefty. It's a long book, you know, but I think that all of it was surprisingly well paced for what it was. Nothing ever felt too rushed or too slow. Well, I will say personally for me, again, I think the ending was just a little bit anticlimactic, and that might just be because I thought it was duology, so I was expecting a tighter ending, but it wasn't until, you know, the very, very end that I realized, oh, this book is gonna end on a cliffhanger. Okay, yeah, sure. When I first got this book, I saw the length of it and I legitimately almost started crying because I was like, how am I supposed to finish this and upload a book review within like a week? But it moves, again, pretty quickly, and you very easily get into the story. So don't worry about the length, honestly. It seems like a lot, but when you start reading it, it goes by so fast. The writing itself is just on a whole nother level. Like I mentioned earlier, but this book is an adult novel, so it also tackles heavier themes. Also just in general having, you know, heavier content and topics. I actually very, very much appreciated this because not only in Hellbent, but in Ninth House, the book doesn't shy away from addressing the classism, racism, elitism that exists within these dark academia institutions such as Yale. I saw a TikTok a while ago, this person talking about how they no longer consider books dark academia unless they also actively critique dark academia within those stories, and I can't help but agree. You know, I don't think you can have a book be dark academia without addressing the underlying problems that build the very foundation of that aesthetic, you know what I mean? So I felt like this book very much handled these heavy topics appropriately and respectfully, especially given that the author herself is not usually one of these like targeted audiences that are affected by dark academia and it's like, you know, problematic foundations. So again, I want to applaud Leigh Bardugo for not being ignorant, I guess, which is kind of the bare minimum, but also I love her so much. And you know, at the book signing actually, somebody asked her how she manages to write such credible representation, which her exact response was, I'm pretty sure, make friends. Have friends who are willing to share their experiences with you and be patient, be respectful, be thoughtful, think about what you're writing, and she's just, oh, I love her so much. She's just such an incredible person. Most of the magical ritual scenes in this book completely just flew over my head. Like I was so confused about what was going on or what I was supposed to envision exactly, but I think that's more on my part and my inability to understand complex things rather than anything else. But I think that overall the book does require a little bit more effort than usual that fantasy books require in you to think about the story, to really comprehend it. But I don't think that's necessarily something you should hold against the book. In fact, I think that's probably a positive. Back to the only criticism I had about the ending where she confronts the demon at the end and the whole, how do you say his name, Iton, the drug lord boss guy. I expected a little bit more given the length, you know? The book is just so long and had so much build-up. I was expecting, I guess, a more explosive climax, especially when you throw in like demons and hell and magic. I guess you could argue that the climax of this book could be Darlington no longer being stuck in hell, like being freed, and if that is the case where that is the climax, then I think that's probably better than the whole her finding the prince of hell demon climax. I don't know. So moving on to part 3, characters and relationships. Starting off with Alex Stern, I love her. I mean, I don't have any criticisms of her. Why would I ever have criticisms of her? I mean, like, yeah, she's a murderer, she's done bad things, but also I will support her through anything. I just think she's just like such an incredibly complex character with such an intense background, and her emotions are always so well fleshed out and raw that I'm just amazed she's fictional. And maybe, yes, I am a little attracted to Alex. Who isn't? You can't blame me for that. Moving on to Darlington. I didn't see as much of him as I hoped in this book. Parts that we do see of him, to be honest, the only thing I remember was that he was like demon and he had demon urges and he was horny. Those are the only two things I remembered about him when he did appear in the book. I think that's the only important parts you really need to remember, but I just want to see Alex and Darlington get together already. I've read both of these thick ass novels and the most I've gotten is them just like barely cuddling in a bed together. Like, come on, I need more. Also, somebody at the book signing asked Leigh Bardugo what their zodiac signs are. According to her, Darlington is a Virgo and Alex is an Aries. Interesting. Briefly moving on to Mercy. I love her. She's the best. That's it. That's all I have to say. Moving on to Dawes. I also love her. She's also the best. That is also all I have to say. I just love both of them so much, you know. I love all the characters in this book. Most of the characters in the book. Some of the characters in this book. Yeah. So moving on to part 4, final thoughts and opinions. Overall, like I said, this book is just an absolutely wild thing to read. It's a mesh of all different sorts of gritty magic mixed with the harsh reality of dark academia, and it isn't afraid to address the problems within these dark academia institutions as well. The writing is just a testament to Leigh Bardugo's absolutely masterful writing, and you're just not going to be able to put down the book at all. The characters are so incredibly well fleshed out. You fully empathize with them despite them not being good people necessarily, which I only think makes them more fun to root for. Writing is well structured and you can tell that every word seems well thought out and planned. It seems absolutely important and necessary to the story. All in all, I think that this book lived up to its expectations. If it wasn't for the climax of this book, which I did again feel like it was lacking a little bit just given the amount of build-up and length of this book, but honestly it doesn't really matter in the overall just given how good this book is. But yeah, overall, I gave this book a 4.7 out of 5 stars. Is it a must-read? Well, I'm assuming if you're watching this video, then you've already read Ninth House and you're on the fence about whether or not to read this book. Yes, absolutely must-read. If you read Ninth House and you don't know whether or not to read Hellbent, definitely read Hellbent. Like, it's a no-brainer. Go for it. And if for some reason you haven't read Ninth House or any of these books, read both of them. Read Ninth House and Hellbent. Even if it doesn't seem like your thing, trust Leigh Bardugo. That woman knows what she's doing. And you can tell. You can tell. Okay, that is all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe. Only if you want to though. I will see y'all next time. Bye.